You can't beat a couple who decides to make each other best friend. Instead of being angry, she just peeped through the window and said, I will tell you the person who taught me how to drive in the bedroom when I come back. More than 70% of the jokes that we do with my wife, they are sex related. If you are married and you are not doing sex, your marriage is in the
Welcome to our show. I'm here with Dr. Marriage. Dr. Marriage, I'd like to welcome you to the show. Can you please tell us about yourself and why people should take their time to actually listen to you today?
Thank you very much. I like calling myself by my first name. My name is Denias. I am a pastor and I'm also a UK trained teacher. I am a public health practitioner. I'm a marriage counselor. I enjoy giving marriage talks and share my own marriage experiences to such an extent that now I've earned a nickname that excites me because I'm now officially called Dr. Marriage.
That one, I like that. I like that name. So, how long have you been? How long have you been married for?
I've been married for the past 34 years. I have 4 children, and 3 of them are adults, and one is still a minor.
Amazing. So, what inspired you to focus your ministry primarily on marriage?
I think I'm one of the few men who have been blessed out there because I'm married to a woman who loves me. You see, one thing that you need to know is you can't fake a marriage talk. Like on my case, about 98% of the marriage talks that I give, I go with my wife and sharing our experience, and that makes it to be practical and doable because I will be sharing things that I do with my wife, and she's there to support me to show that what I'm talking about is real.
So you've kind of covered the next question that I was going to ask you, because I was going to ask you, like, how would you describe your relationship with your spouse, like in one sentence? What?
No, that one I think I can add some more on that one because the relationship with my spouse is that beauty is my best friend. Full stop. My wife is my best friend. And that means a lot. I'm sending a very powerful statement when I say my wife is my best friend. My members know that, my friends know that, my relatives, they know that my wife is my best friend. And as I said, that on its own, I'm sending a very strong message to everyone.
So, like, what's one funny thing about about marriage that people do not know or do not expect? Maybe that you can just share with us.
I think this one will make some people laugh because more than 70% of the jokes that we do with my wife, they are sex related.
Wow. Well, that's interesting because I think the issue of sex is quite an interesting one in relation to marriage. But I'm sure we'll have to create another podcast for that, or many others, obviously, because that's a long topic that we can discuss. But you have, like, you've just mentioned something about your wife being your best friend. Why is being best friends like the foundation of marriage?
You see, the thing is, this is a journey, okay? We're talking of a journey that I've traveled for the past 34 years. And not only that, but I'm still traveling in that journey. So what I've discovered is in that journey, it's very important to open up to your spouse. And the moment you start to open up, it makes you to be very, very vulnerable. So what I'm talking about here is not something that you can just say, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to say A, B, C, D to my spouse, this and this. You're talking about somebody that you trust, somebody who understands you, uh, someone that you are free to discuss sensitive things with. This thing did not happen overnight in my relationship, but it is the friendship that we were sharing, and the genuineness that I saw in my spouse, and also that she saw in me, that made her to be more vulnerable in sharing uh, things about her life. We are talking of sharing joys and funny moments. Um, as I've rightly said, that if ever there is one thing that really, really excites me, it is the idea that when our son, the one that we are staying with, is at school, and Beauty and I are at the house, and we are able to laugh, the two of us, to make each other laugh, having fun together. That's very, very important in a friendship. When you hear someone saying so and so is my best friend, they like to be around that person because they share things, uh, things that hurt them, things that pain them, things that excite them. Moments we spend with our friends are happy moments. And all I'm saying is, if you're a married person and you take your spouse as your best friend, it means you can share silly jokes, silly things. You want to be where your spouse is. If your spouse is in the kitchen preparing lunch, you want to be there, and you find yourself assisting each other, spending quality time together. And also, in this journey, as I've said, I'm just going back to that point because it's very important. Effective communication is very, very important. And the moment you talk of communication which is effective, listening is also involved.
Based on what you've just shared, you've said really like experience. It's like the personal experience that you've walked through with your wife that has led you to believe that marriage is an essential. You've given us examples of how you remain with your wife and how you laugh together and share all these experiences in the kitchen and everything. So that's really important. But perhaps before we go forward to the listening bits, like how do you define like being friends, like in the context of a marriage? Because someone could be asking the question, why should I be friends with my wife, or what does that exactly mean? How does that look like? So can you kindly define what being friends with your spouse actually means, maybe, and put it and just help us to understand why it's important as well.
Let's go into the practicality in the world out there. When someone says so and so is my best friend, it means you know so many things about that person. What it means is you have decided to take all your cards and put them on the table. You see? So, this is the problem that many couples have, and I come across it when I'm counseling, when I'm in a marriage counseling session, that you discover that these guys have been married for more than 10 years, more than 5 years, whatever you think, and there are so many things that they don't know about each other. In other words, I am saying my spouse knows most of the secrets of my life. That's what to be best friends is. Just as good as you and your friend who is not your spouse, they don't know everything, but they know the majority of things. So this is what I'm saying. I'm saying transfer that thing and put it in a marriage.
That makes a lot of sense because I think somehow there's a sense of separation between, especially for, I'm not sure if I'm speaking on behalf of all the men here, but maybe speaking on behalf of myself, where sometimes to picture that within a context of a marriage, it's easy to see my best friend and be able to relate to him. But somehow there are certain things that I might not feel comfortable sharing with my wife. So that I might feel, oh, maybe this I cannot really disclose to her. What is she going to think about me? So maybe that element of trying to maintain a perfect side of myself, so that my wife only sees certain aspects. So I feel maybe it might be inhibiting for me to be able to share certain things with her. What would be your take on that?
I think it takes me to the next stage now because we are talking about. communication here. Okay. And because you are talking about communicating with the person that you like, that you love, and you are opening up. And when you are talking to someone that you love and like, whether it's a friend out there or it's your wife, you have made your best friend, when they are talking, you listen. You get what I'm saying? I mean, imagine yourself, a friend who is not your wife. How many times have you had some serious disagreements, arguments, and so you don't do that. You respect each other. You talk to each other nicely. You make sure that you don't want to hurt your friend. This is the message that I'm putting outside there. That if you make your spouse to be your best friend, you are careful about the way you talk to them, about the way you treat them. We respect our friends, and the respect that you give your friends outside there is the respect that I give to my spouse.
Well, that's really powerful, because I was going to ask you to share like some of the qualities of a friendship and that naturally strengthen a marital relationship. And I believe at some point you spoke about listening, so you've alluded to communication now. So are there any other qualities maybe that can help to strengthen marital relations? Hmm.
Yes, yes, it is there. Maybe let me just give four or so, just in addition to what I've said. Um, the element of mutual respect. Uh, I respect my best friend, and my best friend respects me also. When I'm giving marriage talks, I always say to people, the best way to know that your spouse does not respect you, it is when they talk when you are talking, when they interrupt you. That's a sign that they don't respect you. And notice when you talk to your best friend who is not your spouse, you don't interrupt them. Even if they are talking things that you don't agree with, you give them enough time to communicate, to say what they want to say. Then calmly, without hurting them, without criticizing them, you also bring your opinion, your side of the story. This is the thing that I'm talking about. But I think the quality that I like the most, the quality that I like the most, and that I've worked hard to make sure that I practice it, it is to be empathy with my wife. Em- to take myself and put myself in her shoes. And I've also discovered that she also does the same thing. She takes herself and puts herself in my shoes. And by so doing, I go an extra mile because this person is my friend and I'm empathizing. And also, that goes hand in hand with emotional support that you give the person you love. And one element of the quality of a friend is the idea that be someone who is trustworthy and reliable. I want you to know that when you lose trust with your spouse, that's it. You may want to build it, but it won't go back to the original way it was. So if ever there is one thing that you need to be very careful in a relationship with your spouse, it is to make sure that you don't lose trust. Because if you lose trust, you will not get it back as it used to be. Then the other quality, I know I mentioned it, but it fits in very well here. You want a friend who makes you happy, a friend that you can play with, friendship that has humor. It's a friendship that does not give stress because you're laughing. There's sense of humor. You're sharing experiences of life and all these things. Uh, those are the qualities of a good friend.
That's quite a lot to chew on right there. But maybe to make it practical for someone, because I know you do with a lot of couples, and you kind of went into it a little, gave us some examples. But can you maybe make it a bit more practical as well? And can you share some examples, like from your own marriage or from some of the relationships that you have counseled? Maybe some examples where people have overcome this challenge. They were not getting along, and because you highlighted earlier that sometimes people don't really know each other, and that's a common thing that you see. So how do you then guide people to be able to get into this journey of friendship?
I believe in being practical. Okay, uh, I'm going to share with you an experience that's going to shock you, but I'm happy because it's going to help a lot of people. Um, I think this experience happened. I think it's about 4 months ago. Okay, it was on Sabbath, and I was dressing up to go to church, and we were in the bedroom with my wife. And I remember I said to her something that was very, very nasty. That I said to her, I'm dressing up to go to church to preach. And then I said something very, very, I can't even remember it now, but it was so, so nasty. And I like what this is where people don't know that when you make your spouse to be your best friend, you get away with murder. Murder. I have said something that is nasty. My wife came because I was seated on the bed trying to put on my necktie. I know that. She came and she sat very, very close to me, very close. And she said to me, listen, what you have just said, if you had said it 34 years ago, I was not going to marry you. So the moment she finished saying that, both of us together, as if it was like singing in a choir, we just started laughing together. Then, then after that, when we stopped laughing, I then said to her, "Can you imagine? This is what couples fail to do in marriage. That when your best friend says something that is horrible, you go to them in a way that you know you're not angry, you're not what, but you're trying to correct the thing. Do you know what happened? We went to church, I preached. After my sermon, I shared that thing with the church members. I shared it with my members. And one lady then went to my wife when we were having lunch privately, and she said the thing that pastor talked about, if my husband had said that to me, we could not have come to church together, and it was going to go far. I want you to see that I am talking something that is practical. This actually reminds me also of another incident. I think this one happened more than 15 years ago. I was going to work in the morning. Normally, when I'm going to work, my wife accompanies me to the car park. I don't accompany her, but she always makes sure that when I'm going for work, she takes me to the car park. But this particular day, I don't know what happened, whether we were discussing something. I went with her to the car park, and she got in her car. She's driving off to go to work, and she was not reversing well. And in my language, it's very rude. I say to her in my language, raising up my voice, I said, "Who taught you how to drive? How can you drive like this?" And the joke of it is, I'm the one who taught her to drive. Okay? But do you know what she said? Instead of being angry, she just peeped through the window and said, "I will tell you the person who taught me how to drive in the bedroom when I come back." Do you know that the whole day I was thinking about that thing? What am I going to be told in the evening in the bedroom when this person comes back? You can't beat a couple who decides to make each other best friend. They there's nothing like sensitive thing. No, it's diffused by the fact that you remember that this is my friend.
Quite a lot that you've shared there, some practical tips, and yeah, hopefully, I myself and those that are listening will be able to implement some of these strategies, or try to line up with some of these examples that you've just shared. But what advice would you give to couples that feel that their friendship has faded away over time? Because I suppose most of the times when we get into marriage, we are coming from the premise of having been friends, but it seems like there's something that happens along the way. Like once we are now officially married, where that friendship kind of seems to fade away. So, what advice would you give to couples that are experiencing that at the moment?
You may want to know that me and my wife were never friends we before I proposed there. Okay, I didn't know her. We only started the journey of friendship after I had proposed there. Okay, and the journey wasn't so long because our courtship only lasted for a year. Then after 1 year, I went on to marry. I always laugh at people who tell me in premarital counseling that we have been going out for 5 years, and I say to them, "Are you studying a degree? 5 years, 5 years." And then what surprises me is when I begin to ask them questions, I discover that they don't know much about each other. They've been going out for 5 years, but they are strangers to each other. Now, for those who the friendship is sort of like fading, uh, I have uh, I have some piece of advice for you here. The solution to that thing that I'm going to share with you is number one: can you be intentional that I want my wife to be my best friend. I want the friendship that we had before. I want it back. The moment you become intentional, then you begin to do the following things that I'm going to talk about. Number one, it is to prioritize what I call quality time. And I want to explain what I mean by quality time, because quality time is not you spending the whole day in the dining room or in the bedroom with your wife for 5 hours. That's not what I'm talking about. What we mean by quality time when we are talking of married couples, we are talking of having at least at least 15 minutes. I'm talking of 5 minutes a day where it's the two of you without gadgets and without children. That's what we call quality time. If you have gadgets and children, that's not quality time. It's not. That's why I'm just saying just 15 minutes. 15 minutes quality time. And I always say to people, if you really want to enjoy those 15 minutes, no gadget, no children, why don't you just take a walk, chatting? You're also benefiting because you're exercising 15 minutes a day together, no gadget, no children, just 15 minutes. Prioritize quality time. Number two, you can also revisit shared interests, because what is happening is now things you've grown apart, you're distancing each other. Think of those things that you used to do when you get married and revisit them so that you can reconnect and re engage. Number three, it is to communicate openly and honestly. It doesn't make any sense to try to pretend as if you are not hurt, and where you know very well that you have been hurt, you have got pain. Be open enough and let the other person know what has gone wrong so that they can apologize. And number four, inject playfulness and humor. These they make you keep company. You may want to know that one of the things that I do, I've already told you that more than 75% of the jokes that I do with my wife, they are sex related. Guess what happens? Each time I see a sex thing on WhatsApp or wherever, the first person I forward to is my wife. Same with her. Same with her. Yeah. So basically, that is that.
Those are a lot of tips and habits that you have shared that are very interesting practical tips there that we can actually implement. Because I was going to ask you a question in relation to the 15 minutes that you're highlighting, like because there's some people who are constrained in terms of time, but I think you covered it because you said you need to be intentional. So that means you have to really discuss or talk about it and plan around your schedule so that you can be able to find that time. Yeah.
Yeah, just even in addition to that, I like that you have referred to that. I know I talked about walking only, but you can imagine some people who have young children. So all what you need to do is be intentional. Make sure that every day children are in bed by 7:30. So from 7:30 to 8 or 8:30, it's your quality time. No gadget, no children for 30 minutes. Imagine.
Yeah. 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 That's really good. I think that one I'll take that one up myself because sometimes the walking is not very easy for us. But yeah, putting the kids early to bed so that we can spend time is really a good tip. So thank you for that one. So the next question that I'm going to ask you is because how do you balance it between friendship and romance and the other dynamics of marriage? How do you strike that balance just to ensure that everything is healthy and is good in your relationship, because you've shared some of the habits and the routines as well just now. So how can couples be able to balance their friendship with romance and other dynamics of marriage?
As I said before, if ever there is a thing that you need to prioritize, it is to make sure that uh, romance, physical intimacy takes the place. It should be a priority. I think let me share a story because I can't forget this story, and this is where you see how much I respect my wife and respect the friendship that we have built together. This story is going to blow off people's minds. This story happened when my father-in-law passed away. Okay, my wife is the only child, and the father has died. And at first, we didn't have like money for her to go, but later we discovered that look, you just have to go. So we had to put in money together. And that evening, uh, we bought the ticket. So because I was going to work the following day, uh, I went to bed and I left my wife packing her things and so forth, ready to go. And she was going to stay in Zimbabwe for 2 weeks. Uh, to be honest with you, when I went to bed, I was not thinking of anything. Anything. There was no way that you would think of anything. Your wife is grieving and everything. But what I remember very clearly that I think it was around 1 a.m. My wife came to bed and she woke me up. And she said to me, my husband, I want you to know that I'm going away for 2 weeks. And 2 weeks is a long time. I don't want to punish you. I think it's proper that we have sex together so that you will survive for the 2 weeks when I'm away. now you realize when I tell you that my wife is my best friend. Now you realize. To me, there's no sacrifice from a woman that surpasses that. To know that eh, I need to provide for my husband as I'm going away. My friend needs to remain satisfied. That, if you know something that beats that, put it on the table for me. I've told you that this story will blow your head off. That's a friend. That's a friend. That's a best friend who knows that I have a man who has needs and I must provide the need. I didn't ask for it, as I said, someone had to wake me up. And I always say to people, the moment the wife thinks sex first, you don't need to do much because she's ready for it. Then on another issue that I want to talk about, where a lot of people struggle with this thing uh, of balancing up these things is, I think we need to be very careful as couples by making sure that you don't attempt to change your spouse. You'll be wasting your time. Actually, we say it's you who must change. You can never change an adult, but it's you who must change. And also, this thing of supporting each other, support each other. Y- let me be practical in this thing. There there are some guys who have hobbies, and there are some ladies who have hobbies. Can you support each other's hobbies? Support each other's hobbies. Respect. Uh, give space to your spouse to do the things that they like. Maybe it's just an hour for him watching football. Give him that. Maybe it's something your wife needs quality time with a friend, an hour or whatever it is, 45 minutes. Give them that thing. And also, the other thing to promote this friendship with romance is to set time for being together. Set time for being together, and also work jointly. Work jointly together because we are friends. I know a lot of people struggle in this thing that I'm going to talk about because it comes a lot in my counseling sessions. It is the issue of doing things jointly together. I'm talking about having a joint account, joint finance, where money is called our money. It's not my money, it's not your money, but it's our money, our house. If we say our house, we participate together in house chores, our things together, parenting, our things. Do you know that the moment you just begin to work together, things will automatically things will automatically fall in place?
Well, how would you respond to people that maybe are not very comfortable with doing that because maybe they earn more money or they feel maybe the person is not working hard enough? How do you help people to navigate or come to that understanding that you're working together? Because somehow I get a sense that sometimes there's some form of competition that happens in relationships. I'm not sure if this has just been my personal experience, but just talking to people, oftentimes you see that there's a level of competition. That sense of that is usually not there. What advice would you give, or What are your thoughts on that?
When I got married to my wife, she was earning more money than me. And the joke of it is that I was more educated than her. I had a degree, but she had a diploma in education, and she was working for the government, and she was bringing more money. Guess what? We never had any problems with monies when I started our marriage, because I remember we did not even discuss about it, but my wife was just bringing money on the table, and it has always been our tradition. This is what I tell couples, and a lot of them, they agree with me. You can never beat a couple who put their money together. They are always ahead of other people who earn a lot of money more than them, because this couple is working together. We have done so much with my wife from the time we got married until this hour, and yet we have not been having a lot of money. We give the impression like people think we have money, but we don't have that money. But it is because we put our things together. When we came in this country, within 2 years, in this country, within 2 years, we were already staying in our own house, paying mortgage within 2 years. And yet, there were people who had stayed for more than 20 years, some of them even up to this hour, 10, 15 years in this country, they are still renting. You can never beat a couple who do their things together. No wonder why the Bible says two are better than one. So if the two of you are married but you behave like you are not married, you are missing it. We sit, we plan. I know when we talk of money, the truth of the thing is, when we talk of money, there's nothing like saying this is the correct method. No. The underlining thing is people should discuss and agree. People should discuss and agree. This is how we're going to do our money. Maybe this one will pay for this, will pay for this. That's why all these methods that I'm talking about, they have some advantages and disadvantages. But a couple who decides to put their money together, they have solved the other 99 problems because they are transparent on money. But if you're in a situation where you don't know what the other person is doing, what the other person gets, all they do is A, B, C, D, then if we are parenting and another parent is looking after the children, how are you going to distribute the responsibilities? But if you're a couple, you're putting your money together, even if one uh, person who decide not to work for the sake of the children, they are not disadvantaged because the money is our money. You may want to know one thing that we do with my wife, which is exciting. We always say the money that you work from 9 to 5, it's family money. But the other extra that you get from your projects and so forth, it's your money. I really like that. I really like. But you discover that at the end of the day, my wife still brings the money that she gets from other things, and she still puts it on the table. This is what it means when people are best friends. This is the reason why I promote the idea of friendship in marriage.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's quite a lot of practical steps that you've shared there, that we can be able to mirror as well. Because I know the issue of finances is quite a sensitive one. But I just wanted to ask, like, how do you navigate like disagreements while you maintain a strong friendship? Because I think you kind of spoke about it, but how do you navigate it? Maybe if you can also just give us some practical steps and hints with regards to that as well.
Just try to maybe to give 4 or 5 examples. Number one, uh, when there are disagreements, it is very, very important that you maintain the respect aspect in communication. Respectful communication. What do I mean? Avoid whatever, no matter how heated the argument is, avoid calling each other name calling. Okay? Avoid blaming each other. Avoid raising your voice. I always say to couples, in any marriage, there must be one person who is called the mature adult. And each of you should thrive to be that mature adult. The one I call the mature adult is the one who realizes that my partner is angry, so I must not be angry. Because the two of you cannot be angry at the same time. So if the other person is angry, the one who is not angry must tell himself that I am the one who is going to be the mature adult here and not pour a petrol on water. I mean, not pour petrol on fire. Okay? Then, number two, always focus on the issue and not on the person. Okay? Avoid blaming and criticizing the other person. The one I think that I like the most is when you are in a situation of disagreement, always use the I statement. I feel like not uh, saying to the other person you, because they then go on the defensive part of it. Okay. Then number four, listen attentively. Do you know that just by listening, the other person will realize that I'm being valued here and I'm being respected. I've already told you that one sign to show that the person does not respect you, it is when they interrupt when you are talking. So if you can feel it that I am talking to my spouse and my spouse is listening to me, that will bring satisfaction even if the issue has not been dealt with. And I always say, can you be mature enough in a relationship that when you discover that you are not agreeing, agree to take a break on the issue and reschedule it for further development for another time before things go off hand. Remember, remember, in your friendship, the goal is resolution. It's not about winning. No, it's about the resolution. So if we can keep those things at the back of our minds, then that will be very good.
Thank you for sharing that. I think those are practical insights that we can really take away and be able to apply in our marriage, because I think many times is that element of people not being able to resolve issues can be a very big challenge, because sometimes once you get into that heated argument, it becomes difficult to come out of. And I think what you've shared is quite important as well. So maybe if we can just address some of the challenges, because maybe someone will think, you've highlighted all these, the beauty of it all, and you've painted a good picture, but there are some challenges. So what are the most or what are the most the obstacles that are there that can cause this idea of becoming best friends to not go forward? Maybe if you can just share some of the obstacles that you've experienced in some of the counseling sessions that you've done.
Number one obstacle, I would say, lack of quality time. Lack of quality time in marriage. There is nothing that is as important as quality time. Marriage needs quality time. I am known in my marriage talks for saying For any business to be successful, the currency in business is money. When there is no money flowing in business, there is no business. And in marriage, the currency of marriage is quality time. That's the currency. So if you want to kill any business, remove money from it. There is no business. If you want to kill marriage, remove quality time. Then there is no marriage at all. So the solution is to schedule, intentional. Remember being intentional, then you schedule. You can even come up with a saying of saying, look, we are busy, this, and we have this pressure, but every Sunday, can we have a time whereby we are by ourselves in the afternoon, uh, just on your own? I even advise couples who have young children like you to say, you have certain people you call friends. This is the opportunity to use the friendship with those people. Take your children there once one Sunday for 2 hours and come back to the house, the two of you spend an afternoon together. You cook a meal together. After that, you sit and chat. Just once a week. So what then will happen is, if it's scheduled like this, no matter the challenges that you meet during the week, you know that Sunday is coming when we shall have time together. And if someone is a mature adult, even if they are not happy with something, they will hold on to what they have and say, I will share this thing on Sunday when we'll be having this quality time. Then another obstacle is called poor communication. Poor communication leads to what I call emotional distancing. And this emotional distancing, you can also solve it by just checking on each other. Now, listen to what happened this morning. This is very interesting because our grandson is here, and I mean, we wanted to make sure that everything goes well, we are not disturbed, and everything. My wife asked me in the morning, "What is your program like?" And I shared with her, "I'm going to have a recording and this, and I want to make sure that I'm in a place where I'm not disturbed by anyone." Communication. Okay. Then the other obstacle is lack of physical intimacy. Some years ago, I produced the handout that I was using in my marriage talks that was entitled "No Sex, No Marriage." I'm one person who believes that if you are married and you are not doing sex, your marriage is in the intensive care unit. In other words, to watch this, watch this. I've done it in my talks, even in churches, to find people who have gone in the intensive care and they've come back. It's 1% or 2%. You go in the intensive care, you are on your way to the gravesite. So, in your marriage, if you are not doing sex, your marriage it needs to be monitored. A patient in the intensive care, it's one to one with a health officer. So the marriage that is in the intensive care, it needs a minister to monitor it on a one to one basis because it can break anytime. This is how important physical intimacy is. And one of the obstacles is unresolved conflicts. These they lead in grudges. The Bible says, "Do not let the sun go down in your anger." Do you know that this is my personal conviction? That verse was meant for couples. It's not for ordinary church members. Because the reason why the Bible says, "Do not let the sun go down in your anger," it is because when the sun has gone down, for couples, they must do something when the sun is down. And that thing should be done when they are not angry. This is just like the last one where uh, obstacle where you have different interests in life goals, and this can actually make the relationship to be stagnant. So the solution is go back to what I call shared hobbies. Shared hobbies. And I always say to men, the easiest way of dealing with this thing, if you are just stuck and you don't know what to do, just go and spend your time in the kitchen. Just go and spend your time in the kitchen. And I do it so I know what I'm talking about. I spend most of my time in the kitchen, and that excites my wife so much. Even if there are guests at the house, I make sure I'm the one who provide food for people to eat.
Amazing, thank you. Those are really good ones, because I know there are lots of obstacles. But speaking about obstacles, I know you haven't highlighted it, but sometimes don't, like, external people, like, friends, maybe family. How should couples handle situations where one past partner maybe feels closer to someone that's outside? So if there's a girl that I used to be friends with in high school, and we're still communicating, should that be tolerated at all? Or maybe if it's not necessarily even just someone of the opposite sex, but even maybe friends that are male that I might be spending more time with than my wife, or maybe family members, how can we navigate that? Or what are your recommendations or thoughts around that?
I'm going to try to describe a diagram that I use when I'm doing premarital counseling. I also use it even when I'm counseling couples. I have a diagram that I use that is entitled Operating Your Marriage at 85%. And this diagram is a thing that is like the wheel. In other words, that diagram with the small circles that are there, the first circle inside, we are talking of operating your marriage at 85%. The first thing in that diagram is my marriage. In other words, when you are a married person, the most important thing to you is the marriage. If it's not important, then it will go. Then, the moment I stand up and say my marriage, the second most important thing is the person that I'm married to. So it's my marriage, my partner. Then number three, my children. Then number four, my job. Then the last thing in the circle is our parents. Man, I can take 30 minutes just presenting on that diagram, because it's my marriage, my partner, my children, my job, our parents. I am communicating something. Do you know why I'm putting the parents outside there? I am saying, for me to be happy, you don't need money to be happy. No, you don't need money to be happy. You don't need money to be happily married. No. But to look after my parents, I need money. That's why after the children, it's money. Then after them, it's parents. Okay. Then coming back to your question, so that one would destroy your question is answered by that. But I just want to add more things. In a relationship, it's very important that people should discuss. People should discuss honestly, saying the truth. It's very important to acknowledge and discuss the feelings well. Remember, it starts by I. I feel that we are no longer close as we used to be. I feel that. It's me feeling. Then you check what the other person is saying. Then that will drive you to come up with some resolutions or scheduling times when you can do this thing. So the moment you are discussing, go to the underlying cause, root cause, discuss it and understand it, and come up with solutions of dealing with that thing. And part of the solutions could be creating some shared interests or things that you can do together. uh, I want to share with you something. uh, I learned so many things from this. I think it's about 4 years ago. We bought some drawers for our bedroom. Okay, the two of them were for the side bed. Then there's the big one. You know what I'm talking about, eh? These things, when we bought them, they came dismantled, and the paper that had the instructions, the tools, screwdrivers, screws, washers, everything. When we bought them for, that was when we were just going to Christmas. I think they arrived on the 22nd. So we then agreed that no, we're going to assemble this thing on the Christmas day. If I tell you that those three drawers, to someone who is a carpenter, he just needs an hour. The three will be done. But just for us to assemble the small one, there were two small ones and a big one. Just the small one, it took us 7 hours. But I learned so many things about the skills that my wife has. And it also taught me to be patient. It was only when we had done that one 7 hours that the other ones then took us 3 hours, 3 hours. Because at least we now had an idea. Up to now, we talk about that thing. We talk about that thing. We have never had such a quality time where we took 1.5 days together, working side by side, reading instructions together, eh, joining in things and realizing that no, it's the wrong things. We left another one and we undo the things. Quality time, quality time. And also, it's very important that with friends and relatives, you need to set boundaries. You need to set boundaries. You need to set boundaries. And still on that point, maybe I'll make this one my last point on your question on that one. It is for each of you, even if it comes from one person, it's very important that one person should reaffirm a commitment to the marriage, to say, yes, this thing has been taking place, but after this discussion and everything, I am committed to this marriage. I am committed to this marriage.
I love that one where you are highlighting about how you had to work together. For some couples, sometimes that causes conflict. It causes greater conflict because when you can't decide or agree on which parts, and then but that shows, I guess, patience on your part that you were able to actually work through it and not leave the scene, and you worked through the 7 hours. But that's amazing. I think that's something that we have to kind of work through. But I just want to get some deep reflections for you in terms of like how does this idea of friendship in marriage evolve over time? Because as you said earlier, that for you it wasn't like right at the beginning of your marriage, but it's something that developed over time within your marriage. So how does it develop like over time, this concept of friendship? How can you make it better?
This is a very good question because it also helps me like sort of sum up the things that I've said before. Uh, I think I've already made it clear that this thing is not an overnight thing. It's a journey, but in this journey, when you reach a time where you realize that the wedding honeymoon is over, it's not about sex every evening. It's about the issues of life. Then you then begin to realize that my spouse is always there for me. My back is covered. You are in a relationship where you involve the other person and you consult with the other person. You begin to work together, as I said, doing your things together. You may want to know this story because this story is very interesting. The time we had our wedding, that was the time when banks in Zimbabwe were introducing credit cards. That was the time that I got married. And I remember when I went to open an account, a joint account, where I requested two cards. The bank manager literally called me and said to me, "We have never done that." Where in an account, two people can use two cards to access one account. But I remember what he said to me. He said to me, "It doesn't mean that we cannot do it, but you are like the first person who has requested for such a thing." Can you imagine? And I was given. And I was given. I would never forget that. You know, in other words, your love begin to grow from infatuation to deep love, to then know that, as I've just said, that it's not about sex every day, but it's about addressing the issues of life. And I think it was, we did not even spend a year. I think it was about 7 months after our wedding. It was our desire, of course, to stay maybe for a year or two without a child so that my wife would finish her, her course. But by the time she finished her course, she was already pregnant. So the pregnancy came early, children are involved, and then you now have shared responsibilities of looking after the children and family challenges. I remember my wife was pregnant and she became very, very ill with her first pregnancy. It is all those experiences that will then begin to bring the two of you together, to see your friend suffering and for your friend to know that they are there for you. And as I said, the more you communicate, the more you become more vulnerable to each other. And also you then begin to compromise. And the fact that when someone begins to compromise, it means they love the person, they respect the person, they can do anything for the other person. This is where you begin to enjoy. It's like, it's not easy to get there, but when you get there, that's when you begin to enjoy. So if you ask me, I would say from honeymoon to reach the friendship level where I'm talking of being best friends, it's climbing up the mountain. It is on top there, where when you are on top, then you begin to enjoy the view that you will be seeing because of what you have invested in the relationship.
Thank you very much. Yeah, because I was just thinking about like how, like relationships change when you have children, and at some point the children will leave and go to, uni or wherever and start their own lives. So at that point as well, the dynamics of a relationship are changing because now it's just you and your wife. So if you haven't really built that friendship, I guess things also can get complicated at that point. So yeah, I like how highlighted that. Thank you. Yeah. And so I just wanted to ask as well. I think you've already spoken about the issue of communication because I was going to ask you that question. But how do you know when a friendship within a marriage needs extra care or attention? If you're struggling, because maybe some of the people that are listening or watching right now are just wondering, like, how do they know that their marriage is not health? I know you spoke about like sex. If there's not enough sex, then that could be a sign that your marriage is in intensive care. But are there other signs as well that we can look out for?
Yes, I mean, if you begin to realize that your spouse is not worried about you, they don't care. In other words, this is what we call, it's called emotional distancing themselves. You are sick, the other person doesn't care. Uh, they are not worried about your feelings and everything. All those things. There is no conversation. The communication, number two, the communication is very, very dull and shallow. Remember, communication is the cornerstone. So if the cornerstone is destroyed, you are in a marriage where someone is just asking, how are the children? What is needed at school? You're just communicating i- shallow in discussions. Then lots of unresolved issues hanging in there. And the moment it leads to that, the next thing that suffers is sanctions on sex. No, the sanctions are being applied. You can't even talk. There's small disagreements in very little things, and anger. Someone is not happy because they know this is not the type of uh, marriage that they wanted in life. So basically, I would say that.
That's a lot that you've shared there. That's really amazing. Personally, I've really gained a lot because I was just hoping that I could learn as well. So I've learned quite a lot. But I just wanted to ask you, like, if you can maybe share, can you give some a piece of advice maybe to couples, like just in closing, just some tips. I think you've shared some though, but just like your closing words, like your final words, in just one last sentence, and then also just to add to that as well, like these ideas that you're sharing, is there somewhere where people can find them, maybe in the form of a book or some resources, maybe where you go into more detail as well? So if you can just cover those two, just one last, closing, some closing tips, and then where people can find this information as well.
Thank you for that question. Um, Definitely, I'm in the midst of writing a book. I'm on sabbatical, 3 month sabbatical, and during this sabbatical, I've been writing a book. And God willing, by March next year, my book will be out, which is on the importance of friendship in marriage. Uh, all I want you to know is the moment you stand up and say in public, my wife is my best friend, you're sending out a message. Very strong and very clear. Even to relatives, the message will be clear. So, all I can say in closing is never stop investing in your friendship. Friendship should never take a back seat in marriage. Friendship should be in the front seat. And I'm not talking about just ordinary friendship, but if your friendship can reach a level where you say, my partner is my best friend, then you are there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I've learned quite a lot today. You've shared quite a lot. The importance of communication, the importance of friendship, really, listening, spending time, quality time together, being intentional about the relationship, ensuring that you gradually develop it over time and you prioritize one another. So there's quite a lot of gems, I'm sure, that we've all been able to take away from what you've shared today. So hopefully we'll be able to join each other again in another future podcast where we'll discuss some of the issues that you've raised today and maybe expand on some of those. But to those that are listening to us or watching online, please feel free to share this video with those that you think might benefit from it, as well as subscribe or like, if you really enjoy this video, and share in the comments your thoughts and maybe some topics that you think you might want us to cover in the future. Thank you very much. God bless.